I think also you got to go back and look. We discounted what Georgia did against Arkansas because we thought Arkansas maybe wasn't that good of a team. And I know we'll reevaluate it now, but maybe Arkansas wasn't necessarily as bad. Maybe it really was a good effort.
Maybe people
Georgia
overreacted in week one.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. It gives us our second biggest show, biggest game of the morning trend, which is Arkansas and Mississippi State. And KJ Costello, 3 interceptions. And how about Barry Odom? Talking about coordinators, getting that job done as Arkansas gets their first conference victory in 21 tries.
PB, you and I talked to Sam Pittman during the offseason, and one thing he emphasized was how important it was to hire Barry Odom as his defensive coordinator, a guy that has head coaching experience in this conference, a guy that's an unbelievable defensive schemer. We'll get into talking a little bit more about this, but the last time that Arkansas won an SEC game, Brett Bielema was the head coach. How about that? Back in 2017, that's how long the drought has been for the Hogs.
An incredible win for Sam Pittman's. Yes, sir. He was a happy camper after the dub. It should feel pretty good. And I'm just watching those post-game celebrations and the scrum afterwards. If we were on this show a year ago and I'd say, Sam Pittman got his win against Mike Leach's Mississippi State squad, and it was Felipe Franks playing for the Razorbacks and KJ Costello of Stanford for Mississippi State. You're like, what the hell just happened? But that's 2020 at this point.
And that's amazing to think about all of those things happening and coming together and having so much success so early for a lot of these different teams. The success that last week Mike Leach's squad had in beating LSU. This week it was Arkansas, Ole Miss getting a win as well. Like, it is amazing how quickly these folks have come together with as handicapped as they were with their offseason time together.
But this also is a little bit of what I expected to see from Mike Leach for the entire year. Sometimes they're going to look incredible, and sometimes you're like, what in the world just happened? That happened with him over in Lubbock at Texas Tech. Same thing with Washington State. There's some weeks that they would look like absolute world beaters, and other weeks you'd come out and they kind of lay an egg. And that's fine for year one because I think he's still trying to work through this. But it just goes to show you that any given weekend on this SEC versus SEC schedule, you're going to see things like this.
You're going to see incredible defensive coordinators. You're going to see incredible defensive players. And I think the thing that I go back and look at, very similar stat line, like against LSU, Costello threw the ball 60 times, 623 yards. All right, that's 10.4 yards per attempt. And this week he threw it 59 times and only racked up 313 yards, cutting that yards per attempt in half. So what I saw, we could talk about Mississippi State's struggles, but let's give credit to Barry Odom's side of the ball. That defense, their assignment sound, they know what they're supposed to be doing, and they fly around doing it. And they had a great plan to play more zone coverage than LSU did. They kept their eyes on the quarterback and on the ball. And it reminded me, think back, who played LSU's offense the best last year?
Well, it was Auburn.
Auburn, right? What did they do?
They played like a 3-2-6 type.
Kept everything underneath. When the receiver catches the ball, you tackle the football. Well, I think last week against Mississippi or LSU, they had 363 yards after the catch. That was the difference here. They weren't a bunch of guys running free after the catch because they did a great job of tackling the ball.
Barry Odom right now probably deserves or should send a nice bottle of wine to Bo Pelini at LSU. So, because seriously, when he looked at the tape, goes,
show me what not to do.
Yeah, this is why were you playing man-to-man? I can't tell you how many LSU fans that reached out to me over the last 24 hours and said, why didn't we try to play some of this soft zone going forward? Because had that happened, they think LSU might have been 2-0 and not fell to Mike Leach's squad in week one.
And talk about burying the lead. Sam Pittman has done in 2 games what Chad Morris couldn't do in 2 years. Win an SEC game, and this one on the road against last week's darling Mississippi State. What a win for the Hogs.
Bottom line is we practice all of an hour and a half on Mondays, and we put the game to bed in the first half of our meetings and talk about Auburn and where we're going in a second. I don't think it'll be one bit of problem. I really don't. I know our coaching staff has moved on, and our players used to do what we do.
Speaking of Alabama, Mac Jones was the SEC Offensive Player of the Week after throwing for 435 yards, 4th highest total in program history. Bumper Poole and Joe Fuccio were co-defensive players of the week after Arkansas's upset of Mississippi State. Some other weekly honors: Ole Miss punter Mac Brown was Special Teams Player of the Week. Alabama's Malachi Moore was Freshman of the Week, and Florida's Zachary Carter And Georgia's Ben Cleveland were the linemen of the week on defense and offense, respectively.
Okay, first of all, we're glad to be back home. Like I said, the week one atmosphere was really good, and really looking forward to being back home. Looking at Arkansas, they had a huge, really a big-time win against a ranked team on the road. Very impressive when you watch them on film. Defensively, their defense coordinator, Barry Odom, is one of the best there is. And what he did against that offense that set SEC all-time records a week before, he deserves 2 Coach of the Week awards with everything that he did with that. You look at their defense, they forced 6 turnovers. The first 2 games, I think they're second in the league in red zone defense. And then, of course, their linebacker, Bumper Pool, I think he's leading the league in tackles and having 20 last week. I mean, that was really, really unbelievable to watch. Offensively, I've always been impressed with Felipe Franks and the way that he's playing and running the offense. Very impressed with when he gets outside the pocket. He's very accurate, and he can hurt you with his legs too. But like I said, overall, playing a team that's coming off a big win, and but we're glad to be back home and to get to try to get back on track. Looking at this 10-game SEC schedule, very impressed with not just winning but beating a really good team that set SEC records, all-time records the week before. And then anytime you win a road game in this league, it's extremely tough. So you put all those together, obviously, they'll come in here ready to play. Their head coach, Sam Pittman's doing a great job. He's got his team playing very well, playing with great passion, and so we're expecting to get their best. They made us one-dimensional, okay? So that was probably where it started. That's probably where a lot of that came from, and we were behind. And anytime you're trying to play catch-up against a really good defense that can really rush the passer, I'm sure that's really where that was coming from. But I think the big thing is just, to help him out to be more balanced. And, to be balanced, you've got to be successful running the football too. So, we'll work extremely hard on that moving forward, and I think that'll be a big key.
So let's welcome in our next guest. He is Brandon Marcello, who used to cover Gus Malzahn at Auburn, and what we're about to show you, Brandon is very familiar with. Gus Malzahn still struggling a little bit in these really big games. So, Brandon, thank you very much for being with us. It's always great to have you on. And struggle and Gus Malzahn seem to go together, don't they, in big games?
Yeah, especially when they're on the road. He just doesn't beat top 10 teams on the road. And when they went to Georgia, I saw Georgia in person, and that defense might be the best defense Kirby Smart's had. And considering Auburn reloading on its offensive line and its defensive line, I was expecting them to not have the edge in the trenches, but I was not expecting Georgia to absolutely dominate them physically in both sides of the ball in the trenches. And it just looked like a normal Auburn-Georgia game in Athens. Auburn's offense was one-dimensional, as Gus Malzahn said, and they couldn't do anything in the run game when they wanted to. And what was so surprising to me is that Auburn has gotten away from running the ball so much this season. They only had 8 totes for their running backs against Georgia. They've had 131 yards total rushing in the first 2 games this season. They've gone completely away from their identity these last few years, and it's no surprise to me that they got dominated at Georgia. When you look at those numbers and you look down the future here, all it's going to take is one strong defensive line to beat Auburn this season, and there are several in the SEC.
Brandon, a lot of people will make maybe a little deal out of it because it's really not that big a deal because Arkansas is playing Auburn and Chad Morris spent 2 incredibly forgettable years. But have you seen any influence of Chad Morris so far on the Auburn program?
Yeah, they've gotten away from the run game. They're trying to throw it a little bit more. I do see the intermediate routes have developed a little bit better, especially when they play Kentucky in the season opener. But their offensive line just isn't built right now to have a great protection plan for their quarterback in Bo Nix. And what you're seeing with Bo Nix is he's reverting to the ways of his freshman season when he would escape the pocket a little bit too early, even when he did have good protection. And we saw that against Georgia. He'd had good protection on several pass plays, but he did not trust his offensive line. He moved his feet, and as a result, he never got in a rhythm. And that makes me worry for Auburn that even if they do play very well up front at some point, does Bo Nix start running and escaping the pocket more than maybe he should? As good as Chad Morris has been in developing the intermediate game and the passing game, as I mentioned, they've gone completely away from running the ball. They've got to get back to that. They're not going to win a lot of games in the SEC by just throwing intermediate routes and maybe going deep 3 or 4 times a game. They have got to have 100-yard rushers in this offense, and right now they're not doing that. They've got the talent with Tank Bigsby, apparently to me, but right now they just don't seem too keen on trying to run the ball.
Brandon, I've sat with you at Auburn countless times in the shadows of Jordan-Hare Stadium, often toward the end of the season for Georgia or Alabama week, and asked you the Gus Malzahn question. And you've always gotten it right. You've always said he may not be the most popular guy, but there's no appetite for change. And I'm not suggesting there is, but at some point, where does this relationship go between Auburn fans who are easily disgruntled and Gus Malzahn, whose resume is really not bad when you compare it to some of the other characters in the SEC, but it never seems to be quite good enough?
The way I see it, when he beats Alabama, it gives him a 2-year pass. So there's not going to be a change this year unless they completely fall apart and maybe win 2 games this year, which I just don't see with the talent they have. So next year will be another key year for him, just as it was last year, and then he beat Alabama. But what Auburn fans want to see is that big win at Georgia or a big win at Alabama, and neither have happened under Gus Malzahn. So maybe even no matter what happens next year with both Georgia and Alabama at home for Auburn, if he just loses one of those games, that might be good enough to cut ties with him. But at this point, you're getting to the point where you want to see him beat top 10 teams on the road, and he needs to do it, and he's not doing it. In fact, I don't think he's beaten a top 10 team on the road since Ole Miss in 2014. And since then, he's had some big wins at home, but just not at home or away from home. He just does enough to kind of survive at Auburn. He's been very successful, but I'll say this, the change these last 3 years, in 2017, the last time they went to the SEC championship game, they have not had a 1,000-yard rusher. And that's why they're not being as successful as they could potentially be at home and on the road. If they had a stellar running back and a good offensive line, that game at Georgia is much closer. But that's what Gus Malzahn has built his Auburn teams on early in his career, and they've kind of gotten away from that for whatever reason. And if they don't get back to that next couple of years, we'll keep having this conversation.
Brandon, let's look at the SEC, and it just seems like there's a lot of ships passing in the night right now, and I'm not really sure who they are. I just know there's a lot of traffic out there on the water. Just I think we know what the top of the league looks like, but once we get beyond the elite, how would you evaluate this league, and who is impressing you, and who are you looking to sell as a stock?
Well, right now, the SEC East looks like the better division to me, especially in the top 3 or 4 spots. And I think the Tennessee-Georgia game this week is going to be much more competitive than what we were expecting with Auburn, Georgia. Florida, to me, has the elite quarterback, the elite offense to be able to win in the college football playoff. Their defense has to catch up a little bit to me. So right now, I'm giving actually Florida a little bit of an edge against Georgia, despite Georgia having an exceptional defense, because they just don't have that elite quarterback. And elite quarterbacks are the ones who are winning championships these last 10 years. When it comes to surprise teams, no one's really surprised me. I thought Mississippi State was it in week 1, but then they come back and lose against a team that decides to play some dime defense and slows down KJ Costello. Surprise, surprise. Maybe the surprise team this year will be Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin has that passing game going after they were near the bottom of the SEC last year. They can run the ball. That defense is atrocious, though. If they could just get a little bit better offensively, they might pull off an upset this year that kind of makes us go, wow, Lane Kiffin here in another year or two, when he gets his recruiting classes in, is going to be something to deal with in the SEC West.
Good Tuesday. I'm Dari Noka with this SEC update. You know, it's 2020. Nothing has been predictable, including Arkansas's obvious significant improvement. We know the Razorbacks knocked off Mississippi State Saturday in Starkville, giving up just 14 points to a team that scored 44 at LSU the week before. Now the Hogs have a shot at Auburn. The Tigers, of course, coming off that 27-7 loss at Georgia Saturday night. This test for the Tigers won't be as easy as it may have once seemed, and their head coach knows it.
Very impressed with not just winning, but beating a really good team that set SEC records, all-time records the week before. And then anytime you win a road game in this league, it's extremely tough. So you put all those together, obviously, they'll come in here ready to play. Their head coach, Sam Pittman's doing a great job. He's got his team playing very well, playing with great passion, and so we're expecting to get their best.
Let's take a look at winning with style, brought to you by Belk. How about Arkansas Saturday night at Mississippi State, snapping that ugly 20-game SEC losing streak? The Hogs' defense continued to shine under first-year defensive coordinator and former Missouri head coach Barry Odom, led, of course, by linebacker Bumper Poole's 20 tackles. So now the Hogs travel to Auburn Saturday afternoon right here on the SEC Network. They will play a Tigers team looking for a little offensive confidence after scoring just 7 points in their loss to Georgia this past Saturday. Auburn looking to bounce back for sure. But Gus Malzahn knows this Arkansas team is not the Razorback team that his guys can overlook.
Obviously, they have the potential to go really fast, so some of those things, obviously Barry's going to have to have a great game plan for that. Their big guy on the outside is Anthony Schwartz, who is faster than fast, and then they got a big wideout in Seth Williams. So I think they've got a good offensive football team, good defensive football team. That'll be an unbelievable challenge for us, but we're looking forward to going up there and playing.
Very impressed with not just winning, but beating a really good team that set SEC records, all-time records the week before. And then anytime you win a road game in this league, it's extremely tough. So you put all those together, obviously, they'll come in here ready to play. Their head coach, Sam Pittman's doing a great job. He's got his team playing very well, playing with great passion, and so we're expecting to get their best.
Yeah, this isn't one that Auburn fans likely looked at before the season stanch and said, let's be careful. It may be tricky. Why do you think, if you think, Arkansas could be a slippery, dangerous matchup for Auburn?
Well, part of it's just momentum, the mentality that you have coming into the game, right? One team snapping that streak, buying into what Sam Pittman's doing, specifically the defense of Barry Odom, who is a wizard on that side of the football. It's undeniable. And knowing, obviously, the Razorbacks are going to have to pivot pretty hard from what they saw a week ago in an air raid approach that Mississippi State utilizes. But what gives you pause if you're Auburn offensively is your inability to protect the passer, which has proven to be really the only offense they've been able to generate is through the air. The problem is, can you keep your quarterback clean? And you could see last week versus Georgia, that's not a real confidence builder if you're a passer in your protection. They got after him the entire game. 22 times he was pressured on dropbacks. 13 of those was with 4 rushers or fewer. So we talk about Barry Odom with only 3 down linemen and dropping 8 versus Mississippi State. He might not have to add much to that pass rush and still get into the head of Bo Nix.
Yeah. What do you make of the Barry Odom? As a defensive player, what do you make of the impact of Barry Odom in his first couple of games as DC?
Well, I love the impact that he's made, and it's just look at the players. Look at the style in which they play. They're playing harder. They're tackling better. They actually understand what they're doing, play in and play out. And I love the fact that he puts his players in position to where they can make plays. It's not that, hey, we're going to run my defense. It's all about what I call. No, you look at what they did against Georgia in week 1. They've stacked the box, 8 guys, 9 guys in the box, and said, hey, you got to go out there and you're going to throw it on the outside and beat us. Georgia struggled with them in the run game. Then the very next week against Mississippi State, they go out there and play a completely different scheme of defense. That lets me know that the defensive coordinator is humble and only cares about winning, and then puts everybody else in front of him. And it's not about me and my defense and what next job I can promote myself to, but more on the fact of what can I do to put our defense in position to help us win games. That is what I see out of Barry Odom, and I applaud him for that, because Arkansas looks like a real player, and Auburn needs to get some things fixed on offense. You know, you look at against Kentucky, they were sloppy against Kentucky too, and they just figured it out by the end. They can't come around and be sloppy early and think they're just going to go out there and Arkansas is going to lay it down.
Some breaking news out of Auburn just moments ago. KJ Britt, who is arguably their best defensive player, he leads the team in tackles. He is out indefinitely. He tore some ligaments in his finger. He must have surgery, and we don't know when he's coming back. And that is a torn ligament in his right thumb. That's a big deal, especially this with a bunch of big games coming up. And we welcome you back to the program. We also welcome back to the program Felipe Franks, the starting quarterback at the University of Arkansas. We've talked to Felipe throughout his career, and he got his first Arkansas win last Saturday. Felipe, first of all, congratulations. I've heard from Arkansas fans all week. I know they're pretty excited. I imagine you are as well.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you again for having me. Our team was excited to get the first win under our belt, and we're continuing to work throughout the week. We had a great week of practice this week preparing for Auburn, and the guys are excited for what's ahead and what they prepared for, and these guys have worked super hard, and they're every bit of deserving for that win, and looking for more. So these guys are hungry, and I'm excited as well.
Well, we're really happy to talk to you, and I don't want to spend too much time on the past, but you had quite a fascinating career at UF, and we talk to you quite often down there. What's it been like making the transition? You had plenty of places you could have ended up. What was the compelling reason to head to Fayetteville, and tell us what it's been like since you got there?
Yeah, of course. When I was at Florida, I had a great time when I was there. Great 4 years, graduated from there, and so when I was looking for places to go, I still wanted to play really good ball against the best in the country. And, when Coach Pittman gave me a call and Coach Davis and Coach Browse, and I talked to them about coming to Arkansas, it was an SEC West, and then, I'm playing against good competition week in and week out. And for them to just give me that opportunity, I was grateful for it. And, really I hopped right on it once I came on my visit, seeing how it was. And I've been just excited ever since, putting in work and getting to work with Coach Browse and the whole offense and these offensive guys. It's just super exciting.
Let's talk about Coach Browse for a second, because certainly he comes from one of the most famous offensive football families in the country. How has that relationship gone? You've worked with some of the best around, including Dan Mullen. How would you characterize working with Coach?
Yeah, of course. So I think that just for me, you take pieces from everywhere, you get coached from. And I love, being coached by Coach Mullen and them and Coach Johnson as well. And when I got here, Coach Browse, he's done nothing but just push me to be the best that I can be, whether that be in the film room, out there on the field, the best person I can be. And then now that, I'm at a much more mature level, I'm able to take those, to heart and be able to hop on those opportunities where I do have opportunities to grow in my life. So, Coach Browse has been pushing me on and off the field, and, I love him for that. And it's presented a great opportunity for me.
Felipe, it's interesting that when you've done as much as you have done, I mean, you've started at Florida, you've been a big star in the SEC. Then, of course, you get hurt and have to rehabilitate. But, what drives you now? Because you're not like a freshman coming in right out of high school. I mean, you have a wealth of experience.
Yeah, I think that any football player who loves the game, it's easy to tell you kind of what drives you is just the love and the passion that you have for the game. And I've had that since I was a little kid, and just to be able to be grateful to still be out here and still being able to play on Saturdays and still being able to practice throughout the week and put that work in to play on Saturdays. It's all a blessing, and I never take those things for granted. It's been definitely a long transition from when I did get hurt to now, but I think there was many lessons taught along the way that I'm grateful for as well. So, I wouldn't trade that journey for anything, looking back on it now.
Okay, we've covered the past. Let's talk about the present, which is this weekend. It's a huge game, to say the least. You're up against a really good defense, and you've already done this. You've been on the road in the SEC many, many times. I'm sure that background, that experience helps you. How are you approaching this weekend's game?
Yeah, this weekend, Auburn, they have a really good team, and they're coached really well, Coach Steele, and they have a good head coach as well, with Coach Gus. So, and they're a well-prepared, a well-coached team, and, we are as well. And we've had, like I said, a great week of practice, and these guys are excited to get the opportunity to go out there and compete against another top team in the SEC with Auburn. And, I think it'll be a good game. It'll show a lot about our team, excuse me, and just being able to get out there and get the opportunity to go and play against one of the top teams. And this is another stepping stone for Arkansas and for our football team, moving forward.
Felipe, I know when a program hasn't won in a long time, there's a tendency to maybe take it too far. But I would also imagine, with your experience, that's probably not going to happen, or has not happened this week. How do you zip up the win last weekend and move on? I know that's cliche, but you still have to do it.
No, of course, and like I was saying before, that these guys were excited about last weekend, and we put that, behind us. Being able to bury that is important, and move on to the next team, because in the SEC, like I said, with the 10-game SEC schedule, it's game after game. And so it's a perfect opportunity for us to learn, how to put that behind us, and then let's go win again. Let's go try to prepare, and throughout the week to go win again. And that's what it's all about, just a winning mentality. And these guys have it.
Thank you very much, Felipe. It was really a pleasure. A couple of issues there with our sound, but we really appreciate it, and best wishes on Saturday. Every time I look at our call board, Chris, there's 10 Arkansas fans wanting to brag about Sam Pittman and his staff, and it seems like I think you've been one of those guys calling in every day.
Hey, man, don't diss on those old offensive line coaches. They know what they're doing. And everybody wondered when Arkansas hired Sam. Yeah, well, they wondered what was going on. Why was it him? Well, I think he's proven, the staff that he's put together, the way he connects and relates with kids. I think to this point, Paul, if you look across the league, 2 games in, and we only have 2 games as a body of work, has any staff done a better job than Arkansas? They don't have the personnel that other teams in the league do. They didn't have spring practice, had very little time on the field, new system, new staff. They played 3 quarters against some good football teams, really quality football.
And as you know this staff and understand it, I thought before the season, Chris, maybe a win in the SEC would have been a good year, but their fans really think they've got a chance to rack up a couple of wins here. What do you think is their ceiling this year?
Well, I was the same way, Paul. I thought if they could get 1 win, maybe 2, it'd be a really terrific job. I shouldn't say a terrific job, but a solid job by Sam and that staff in their first year. But I think if you look down their schedule and the way they played, especially on defense, Barry Odom is a good football coach. And, I understand it didn't end at Missouri the way he wanted it to, but everywhere he's been, they've been able to play really at a high level. And you're seeing that now with Arkansas. They're going to be in a lot of football games simply because of the way they play on defense. Quarter and have a chance. And, you look at their schedule. And schedules, Paul, always look different 6 and 7 weeks into the season than they do before the season. I think this Arkansas team's got a chance to win 3-4 football games.
There are many interesting games tomorrow, including Arkansas, fresh off that huge win over Mississippi State, going down to Auburn, coming off of a very difficult loss Lauren Sisler will be on the sidelines. And Lauren, it's always great to have you on the program. Good afternoon, and how are you?
Hey, Paul, it's always great to chat with you. Obviously, cruising right into week 3 of the SEC college football season. The weather down here is not exceptional at Auburn. I got to tell you, I thought we were going to be kind of free of rain till tomorrow, but unfortunately, it's coming down pretty hard. So we're trying to, take shelter, and hopefully things won't get too messy tomorrow at kick time.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a mess literally everywhere from Louisiana to the Carolinas and north. What does it look like tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of tracking the storms. Obviously, the radar, as of right now, it looks like we'll be kind of clear in the morning. But then as we get closer to kickoff, the rain's going to pick up. And I think that's the one big question mark kind of going into this from a coaching standpoint is, rain is one thing. You keep the balls dry. But if you start getting the wind and obviously the torrential downpour, that can completely change the entire, the entire game plan from an offensive standpoint. We actually just talked to Gus about that. And so, really, I think it's sometimes hard to predict the weather. I think they're keeping an eye on it, and right now we don't quite know what those winds are going to look like based on what I've seen in the radar and my handy dandy app on my cell phone. Of course, Paul, I'm not going to pretend to be a weather woman over here, but winds upwards of 30 miles per hour gusts, obviously heavy rain at times, and so I think a lot will just depend when we wake up in the morning. We'll be able to track it a little closer and see what it's going to look like at kick time, 3 o'clock Central here in Auburn.
Come on, Lauren. Of all the many things you've done in TV, I'm assuming you've at least done one weather forecast.
I can't. Well, you know what? You know how it is in local news. Like, basically, it's all hands on deck. So I was in Birmingham, Alabama during the snowpocalypse days when 280 completely shut down and we were all walking against traffic. It looked like someone took a shoebox full of micro machines and dumped it down the hill. It was a big mess. So, I've done my fair share, I guess, of covering inclement weather here in the state of Alabama.
I am curious because, it's sometimes being on the sidelines in a hot day or a cold day, but during a torrential downpour, how do you survive, not so much from your own health standpoint, but with all the equipment that you're carrying around, how are you able to communicate?
That's such a great question, Paul. I tell you, I'm kind of one of those, I lean on the side of optimism. I think I told you that a few weeks ago when I was on the show, and I do the same thing with the weather. I look at the weather and the percentages, they're hit or miss, and I'm always like, we'll be good. But here's the thing, when the rain comes in, it makes it extremely difficult because, number one, as a reporter, my job is to take notes and obviously see what I'm seeing on the sidelines. Well, pen and paper doesn't work too well when it's raining, unfortunately. Your depth charts, everything you've got to kind of put in a plastic sleeve and sort of hope you can see the ink that's bleeding all over the paper. And then, of course, as you said, with all the technology, it definitely makes it a lot more difficult. You got your IFB in your ear. You're trying to hear the guys that are in the booth, but they're not even in the booth right now, which is another challenge. They're at home, obviously, during this pandemic, and so communication can be a lot more challenging in that regard. But it's definitely different being on the sidelines. Observations definitely become even more critical in these weather type situations. But of course, we are limited as well as to where we can kind of maneuver on the sidelines. So I think that, being that we're in the middle of a pandemic, so protocols are different, but of course, adding weather to that, this will be my first, inclement weather game of the season. So there's a lot of unknowns that are going to be rearing their ugly head tomorrow.
Lauren, you mentioned you talked to Coach Malzahn. I'm really interested in what he has to say. I've heard what our fans have to say about him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, he's in good spirits. I think coming off that game, I mean, the biggest thing that this Auburn football team is talking about is, improving week to week. And I think that when you look at sort of the dynamic of a lot of these coaches coming into this season and having to deal with limited time with their players, it has presented a lot of challenges. And everyone's in the same boat. And again, that's not to make excuses, but, in talking to coaches these last several weeks, kind of getting a feel for the limitations that they've had. And as you know, Auburn's offensive line, I think, has probably taken the most significant hit in regards to being able to put all of those guys at the front and find that sort of quote unquote winning combination of guys that can go up there and open up seams and obviously give the offense the best chance to succeed. And I think that definitely showed up against Georgia, which is, of course, one of the best defenses in the SEC and or in the country. But I think that, overall, there is, they're just trying to find that confidence and to give their quarterback confidence. And I think that's going to start in the run game, which, again, weather can play a big factor in that tomorrow. What is that offense going to look like if the weather is inclement? But, there are a lot of questions surrounding this Auburn football team. And, on both sides of the football, offensively, they are really banged up right now. You've got Seth Williams, who's expected to play, but he's been banged up. He's one of their biggest threats to the air. Eli Stove's a question mark. Bradarius Ham's still a question mark. We don't know if we'll see him on the field. And then, of course, on the other side of the football, the biggest hit they take is KJ Britt. He's out. And they've got plenty of guys that can go in and fill in. You got Jacoby McLean, who can go in and fill in. Owen Papo, which will certainly fill the void that KJ Britt leaves. But KJ Britt is going to be out for the unforeseeable future. That's another big area of concern, is just defensively. They've got the talent. There's just a lot of inexperience on that defensive line and obviously in the secondary, and that's something they're really going to have to work towards.
Lauren, before you go, what about the other side? Arkansas coming in here on an incredible roll. They finally won a conference game. What are you hearing from Coach Pittman's side of the ball?
Yeah, kind of coming into the week, I talked to the SID at Arkansas, Kyle Parkinson, and he said the program came to this rare intersection of both joy and relief. And I think that really encapsulates what this game is all about, especially for Arkansas, that side of the football, because there is that joy, that excitement. You get a win, but you go 20 games without winning a conference game. So there is that sigh of relief. Okay, we finally, climbed the mountain. We're far from obviously claiming a championship or anything, but ultimately it's one step in the right direction. And so I think the perspective in just coming in, they want to celebrate the victory, but they know there's a lot of work to be done. And I'll be honest, it was my first opportunity talking to Sam Pittman this week, kind of in a one-on-one setting, and really enjoyed talking to him. He's a tremendous leader. I think he comes in, he's very businesslike. He likes to communicate with his guys, and I think he's put together a great staff in Kendall Briles and Barry Odom to come in and really do a fantastic job of developing that program, developing that team, and giving a lot of these guys that have been in that program and had to suffer through, what has been a very tumultuous couple of years, some confidence and some hope that they can get things turned around. And I think they're moving in the right direction, and we'll see how that shows up tomorrow on the football field here at Jordan-Hare Stadium.
With Jordan Rogers, a couple of more quick games. Arkansas, biggest story of the weekend last week with that huge win, finally getting it off its back. What about their path in Auburn tomorrow afternoon?
It's going to be a good football game. Don't get it twisted. I know we like to think of Arkansas as what they've been the last couple of years, but I think they proved that last week. I think they proved that really in how they competed for a good half, maybe a little longer against Georgia as well. This is a good football team that's still figuring out their identity. They have a brand new offensive coordinator that is a contrasting style to his head coach. You have a defensive coordinator who's been in the league a long time. So Arkansas is tough. And what I saw from Auburn was troubling. I did a breakdown video on my Twitter account about Auburn's deficiencies on offense. And really, when you watch him, and as a fan, you get so frustrated, like, why is Bo Nix escaping the pocket? Why is he always under pressure? It's not just Bo Nix, and it's not just because the defensive line for Georgia was that much better than Auburn. Were they? Yes. But time and time again, there's protection issues. And what is happening is Gus Malzahn or Chad Morris or whoever's calling those plays is calling a set protection in. And if the defense adjusts or gives them unbalanced or something they weren't expecting, they don't adjust on the line of scrimmage. They're not allowing Bo Nix to remike or change the protection to protect himself. And so you get free rushers. It was as easy as that. That's high school rudimentary stuff that they should be doing that they're not. So they're not setting themselves up to be successful. So if they don't fix that, Arkansas is going to get run-throughs. They're going to get pressure on the quarterback. And I expect a lot of what we saw last week. So that's got to be fixed from Auburn because they're better than that. But they're not allowing Bo Nix to protect himself and be better.
Jordan, 2 weeks in, you mentioned Chad Morris. What do you see from his influence on that program now that he's calling the plays?
Boy, there's hints of things that I really like. I loved last week when they started splitting out Tank Bigsby, their running back, out wide. I love when they play with 2 tight ends. J.J. Pagee is a 300-pound tight end, creates some mismatches, right? The defense has to decide, are we treating him as a tight end? Are we bringing in an extra linebacker? So I love some of the things he was doing from a personnel standpoint, but there's just a miss. And what I mean is they'll place their personnel in certain places, but they won't use it. Not once did Tank Bigsby on the outside, who had a linebacker lined up over him, a 220-pound linebacker in space, in man coverage, not once out of I think 5 or 6 times did he line up outside that he ran a viable route. Meaning that he ran a route that Bo Nix was actually looking for. 3 times he ran a hitch, and I think 2 times he ran a takeoff or a clear-out route for a different route to be open. So you have to take advantage of personnel mismatches when they're there. And I just don't see that out of Chad Morris or Gus or this Auburn offense right now. They're not taking advantage of putting their personnel in mismatches and then actually using that.
There are a couple of weird games out there tomorrow. Arkansas is just sky high after its big win, heading to Auburn, which couldn't be much lower. Any chance of an upset there?
Oh, yeah. I'm going with the upset, and I was going to debut that on our
really?
SEC Now tonight, but I think you're right about it. I mean, these teams couldn't feel any more opposite right now. A lot of confidence for Arkansas after coming off the win last week over Mississippi State. For Auburn, they were exposed, and I got a lot of criticism on social media. I thought Kentucky was the better team when they played in week 1. Kentucky hurt themselves with turnovers and special teams play. But at the end of the day, they got exposed last week. Auburn got exposed for what they are, very limited offensively. The offensive line is not good at all, and their biggest play in week 1 was throwing the football up to Seth Williams in a contested catch situation. They weren't able to do that against the better corners from Georgia. And I think this week, Barry Odom, who I think is maybe the most important assistant coach hire in the conference this year, is going to have a good plan for Auburn as well.
Here, Roman. We've talked at length about the rapid improvement of that Arkansas defense under first-year coordinator Barry Odom. They face Auburn on Saturday. Where can Arkansas defensively give Auburn trouble?
Well, I think early on in downs, they're going to play more 4-down linemen. Everybody was all up in arms about the defense that they played last week against Mississippi State, rushing 3 guys 100% of the time on all the passing plays. But this week, they're going to go more 4-down linemen. I'll show you a lot what they did similar to Georgia in week 1, where they're going to be stout up front, make you challenge these guys, and make you have to go outside and pick the ball up. Then later on in pass situations, 3rd and long, 2nd and longs, that's when you'll see a lot more of the 3-down linemen and more exotic blitzing, because Auburn has not figured out how to stop a blitzing linebacker yet. So now we're going to have multiple guys out there and be able to come from different angles. I can't wait to see how they continue to get more and more exotic and be able to do other things. I like that Barry Odom says it seems humble. It's not about the defense and what he's calling, but more about I'm putting my players in the best position to be successful week in and week out.
And Roman, if you think about it, this team doesn't even need to get exotic. If you looked at the Georgia tape, it wasn't because they were bringing a ton of blitzers. They just brought uneven looks. They brought green dogs late. They rushed 4, but they brought them from one side of the field. And Auburn does not adjust their protection. Watch the tape. They do not adjust their protection. So it could be a long day if they don't get that fixed, because Georgia didn't need to blitz, and they got pressure almost every time Bo Nix was an empty.
Well, Jordan, I just like using the word exotic because that's what I like to do. All right, defensively, you got to get a little bit more exotic. And you're right, against Auburn, you don't have to be fancy at all.
But, Roman, I think you're exactly right with one really good point, that Barry Odom isn't stuck to one scheme, to one style. He wants to put his defense in a position to succeed against whatever offense they're facing. That's why he only ran a couple of defenses against Mississippi State. I literally went back and watched it again last night, and I loved it. They ran 38 double cloud on almost every single freaking play in that game. And then they would change it up with 38 robber and bring that safety back inside. They were playing post high the entire game, and they were saying, we are going to force you to run it inside. And Mississippi State didn't want to, and they keep wanting to get it out. Guess what? When you had corners playing hard in the flat that are extra guys, you can't. It's taking away those little swings and bubbles. And so I love what Barry Odom. He said, you know what? This isn't my scheme, but we're doing it because we're doing what's right for the players to win the game. And I love it. Good job, Barry Odom.
Tebow, did you play a little linebacker back in the day? You were more excited talking defense than I've ever heard you talking offense. That was impressive.
He could have.
I know he could have.
You know what? I get excited. I get excited when coaches put put players in a position to succeed exactly what Barry Odom
He still
did.
could.
That's why I like
Look at those traps.
I know he can play linebacker.
I mean, he's popping out of that shirt.
I run when I see him in person. Good stuff, guys. We'll see you at 10 a.m. with Laura tomorrow morning, Saturday morning.
You know, guys, I think a sneaky game today in the SEC is Arkansas off a big win.
Agreed.
Going up against Auburn. We know what Auburn did last week. Things did not go well. And Arkansas, meanwhile, knocks off Mike Leach and Mississippi State, and they've got belief in Sam Pittman, what they're doing. The defense last week that Auburn faced was outstanding. I really believe that Arkansas is sneaking around today. They better be careful with the Auburn team.
I agree with Kirk, though. I think the Arkansas-Auburn game, sneaky good game. We don't know where Auburn is after that embarrassing loss a week ago in between the hedges to Georgia. I mean, they got dominated from beginning to end, especially in the trenches. Arkansas is a team, they played one bad half of football, second half against Georgia, and that's it. If they can put a complete game together, we don't know where Auburn is mentally. This could be a very interesting game. I'd like to see Arkansas in a close game against Auburn. I think Auburn will win, but I like Arkansas to compete.
Y'all talking about that game, I better hear that as a super dog out of one of y'all then.
And how about Chad Morris, former Arkansas coach, on plays at Auburn?
I think Auburn's got bigger issues than just losing to Georgia. We'll find out today. We'll also find a lot more about Arkansas.
For me, Jordan, it's got to be Arkansas's defense versus Bo Nix and Auburn's offense. Through 2 weeks, Barry Odom has showed us two completely different game plans on Arkansas on the defensive end. I'm looking forward to what they bring out against Auburn today. Bo Nix, he has to bounce back. They have to play better up front, and he has to make some of these deep throws, and he's got to play better if they have a chance to win this game.
There's a look right now, a live look at Toomer's Corner about maybe 5 hours till game time there at Auburn. Arkansas coming off a win in the SEC, and they are taking on an Auburn team that is looking for a win. Both teams 1-1, and Auburn dealing with some injuries. Here's Lauren Sisler with more.
You know, Laura, we are still early in this football season, and injuries are playing a big factor in this game against Arkansas and Auburn. And perhaps the most significant injury we're going to see today is senior linebacker KJ Britt for Auburn. He just underwent hand surgery, and Gus Malzahn said we don't really have a timeline for him right now. The hope is that they can perhaps get him back after the bye week. But KJ Britt, a tremendous loss for them on the football field, but also a huge leader and coach off the field. So they're going to be looking for guys like Zacoby McClain and Owen Papo to really step up and fill in that void left by KJ Britt.
The injury is certainly a huge part of this. Thanks for that, Lauren. Jordan, is this a scary game for Auburn?
I think it could be. I mean, if you look at what Arkansas has done defensively and you look at some of Auburn's deficiencies in the protections, it absolutely could be. And now, look, good teams make great game plans. Great teams have great adjustments mid-game, and that's the difference. I think Auburn needs to start adjusting some of their protections. If you watched last week against Georgia, there was just free rushers. Georgia wasn't bringing extra guys. Look at this play right here. If you're the quarterback, where do you think most of the pressure is coming from? To the left, but they don't adjust the protection. They still have it sliding to the right, and although they only bring 4, you have a free rusher on Bo Nix. So it doesn't really matter what plays you dial up. If you can't give Bo Nix the time, that's going to be a problem, and it's something that they'll continue to develop. But again, here, you're going to have 5 guys in the box and 5 to protect. But watch the center's eyes. That tells me he's expecting a full slide, so they don't adjust the protection to account for a linebacker in the box, right? Block the box and throw hot off anybody that comes outside of the box at its most simplest form. So look, it was a shortened off season, and they have a new offensive line. They have a quarterback that's still developing. The more he can have autonomy on the field and learn to protect himself, the better this offense is going to be, and the more he'll be able to develop as a passer.
Jordan, I totally love that tape, and I totally agree with you. But also, one of the problems is they're in those third and long situations where they can't protect because they can't run the ball on first and second down. Auburn is not a spread, fun and gun type offense. It is a run first, zone read, downhill offense. That's what Gus Malzahn wants to do. And for them to be successful, they have to have a physical offensive line, a running back that's willing to go downhill, and a quarterback that's willing to pull it and get downhill himself. That's when they've had success over the last 10 years. When Auburn wants to get back to being successful, they're going to get back to being physical. That's when they'll take the next step.
And Roman, here's Arkansas looking like the most improved SEC team early this season. What do they need to do to continue their success and have a great showing today against Auburn?
I think they got to be ball control on offense, running the ball. Rakeem Boyd still has to pick it up. He has not had a great year so far. Keep that thing going. And defensively, you just keep doing what you're doing. Barry Odom led defense, 2 different games, 2 different game plans, doing whatever it takes to win. Rush 3 versus Mississippi State. You rush 4 versus Georgia. You put everybody in the box. I think they will do the same things this week against Auburn. Early downs, first, second down, you'll see 4-man box. You'll see 5 D linemen. You'll really try and get after Auburn. Make sure they don't run the ball downhill. Then on your second and longs, third and longs, like Tim's saying, struggling, run the ball early. That's going to allow you to start blitzing from different angles. And I'm not going to say the word exotic, Jordan. You can just line up and blitz it. From what Jordan's showing us, they can't protect it anyways. It doesn't even matter. You can show your hand. They're not going to block you. Get right in there. Continue to confuse this offense of Auburn. And, hey, put the pressure on them. You have nothing to lose. Continue to play how you're playing. Arkansas, that's not going to be your only win last week.
Yeah, guys, I just have to point out, it seems like when Auburn has been on the ropes under Gus Malzahn a little bit, then that's right when they right the ship and they get things going and put out a good performance. We'll see if they're able to do that against, to Roman's point, a talented and physical Arkansas team. Right, this is what's going on in the SEC. More details emerging about the Missouri players who will miss today's games. Among the 6 players out due to coronavirus or contact tracing are 3 of the Tigers' top receivers, Damon Hazelton, Kiki Chisholm, and Dominic Jacinko. And the conference reinforced its COVID-19 protocols, warning the schools of fines and potential suspensions for violations. Arkansas running back Rakeem Boyd questionable today at Auburn after missing the second half of last week with an undisclosed injury. Also, this just coming down, Vanderbilt only has 56 scholarship players available for their game coming up in a few minutes against South Carolina due to injuries and COVID-related issues. How about Arkansas against Auburn, Tim?
Hey, listen, I think this is a close one. I think Arkansas is much improved. I love what they're doing on defense, putting their players in a position to succeed, but I can't go with them. I got to go with Auburn in this game. I think they bounce back, but it's very competitive.
I agree, Tim. I think if you looked at the tape, the breakdown it earlier, it wasn't as much physical as it was schematical changes. They can make those changes, help protect Bo Nix, and I think they get the W on this one in a close one.
Yeah, I like what Arkansas is doing defensively, but you don't go from losing 20 games straight in the SEC to winning 2 straight. I got Auburn winning in a close one. I don't love Auburn, but I like them more than Arkansas.
Arkansas and Auburn, Alex, who is it?
I got to go with my boys Frank Thomas and Charles Barkley. I'm going with Auburn. Better team. They have Bo Nix. Auburn wins the game.
All right, so is everybody else here except you. Why are you going with Arkansas, Kirk?
Because I called the Auburn-Georgia game last week and saw Auburn firsthand and realized that they have some major issues on their offensive line. And I think Arkansas's got some newfound confidence. Sam Pittman's doing a good job. Barry Odom on defense. Felipe Frank's playing with maturity. I'm going with Arkansas to upset Auburn.
Razorbacks ending that losing streak last week. Auburn trying to right the ship after losing to the Dogs by 3 touchdowns. Warren will watch this one. Tigers 40% on 3rd down so far this season. Nick's in trouble, and down he goes. Cannot escape the pressure.
Clean. That opening possession does not seem to bode well so far for that goal.
Franks from his own 10. Traylon Smith gets free. And he's past the 30-yard line. That's a big gain for the junior from Houston, Texas. Negates the longest run of the season. Instead, 1st and 15. Fake to Smith. Franks from the goal line throws past the 25, and it's caught by Mike Woods.
56% of the time, Auburn's been passing the football.
2nd and 9, and it's Bigsby again. And he's past midfield. Let's go back to the studio. Update on Texas and OU.
Coach Cadillac Williams.
Yeah, bring Williams out and bring Pegues in. Tosses it ahead to Schwartz. And Schwartz is wrapped up. The ball comes out, but they're going to say that that ball is down.
I feel like his right elbow would have established him down before it popped out.
We'll never find out as Auburn goes quickly, and Bigsby is near the 30-yard line. You would have to think that holding on to the football will be Nix is tackled for a loss in the backfield as Greg Brooks Jr., the nickelback, comes up to make the sack. Pegues in there as a blocker. 6 plays, 6 runs on this drive, and nothing doing for DJ.
Extended 25 practices over 40 days, but they've been getting ready for the season for longer than normal.
Bigsby's no place to go this time as Eric Gregory, the defensive lineman.
They talked about running the football. I mean, it's Auburn. We run the football, right? They did it all the way into the end zone with Bo Nix.
Fake to Smith. Throw it quickly to Devion Warren. Career game last Saturday night in Starkville, including a touchdown. Smith, first down run inside the 30 and cuts it back inside the 25. 15-yard pickup. Franks will dump it off to Treylon, and he's inside the 15 and stayed in bounds. Arkansas is 0 for 5 on third down. This is 3rd and goal from the 4. Fake to Smith, over the top, touchdown, Mike Woods. Mike Woods, Chad Morris prize recruit with the catch, but they can't pay it off.
Arkansas struggling mightily on offense, no scoring pressure. They can stick with the run.
And it's DJ Williams who is tackled. Nice open field move by Jacobs. On a 3rd and 5, Tigers will finally sling it, and it's incomplete as Nix was looking for Seth Williams for the first time today.
You know, what does it look like when they come back to it? And Seth Williams coming all the way across the formation, and Catalon does a great job of jumping the route. Was able to spark the offense a little bit. Treylon Smith with some nice carries.
He'll drift back and air it out. One-on-one, and it's caught down near the 30-yard line by Devion Warren.
Working against Roger McCreary, one of the better ones, and he just doesn't come back to play the ball quickly enough. He steps up with some nice run stops.
Franks on 3rd and 8, dumps it off underneath to Smith. It's a first down, and he's tackled on a 2nd and 4. Fake to Smith, and now it's Warren to the end zone, touchdown. Felipe Franks puts 2 consecutive drives together, game on.
About this Devion Warren kid. Had a career day last week versus Mississippi State, 100 yards receiving.
Warren at the bottom, now coming in motion. Franks flushed out, back of the end zone, incomplete. Trey Knox couldn't bring it to his body.
Furthest downfield we've seen this game is Seth Williams with a physical finish.
Try him again, one-on-one, incomplete. No flag comes down as Kari Johnson was able to make this an incompletion, and that doesn't happen very often on a 50-50 ball involving Seth Williams. 3rd and goal, it's Schwartz, and he slips, and Auburn will be forced to bring the field goal team out. The Auburn Tigers leading Arkansas 20-12 as we get ready to start the 3rd quarter. Now here's our first half stats brought to you by PlayStation 5.
You can see where Auburn opened up that scoring. The block punt for a touchdown, and I think that gave them the chance to be patient with the ground game. That, boy, did that pay off for them.
12-yard gain for the quarterback, keeping it again. And the sophomore will get a few. This is a tough guy for You Got Mossed, mossing somebody on the opposition. Nix under pressure, tries to get rid of it and does, and there's no whistle yet. Now there is. They'll call it incomplete.
That time Jonathan Marshall for Arkansas. They're able to get there with 4. See him win right now, just slips. They're turning the protection. And he slides right in there. I think he might have been down before he got rid of this football. Nix fights off the initial part of it. I'm not sure he got rid of that ball.
After video review, the ruling is the runner was down prior to making the pass. It'll be 3rd down halfway beyond the 38-yard line. Third down.
Play of the drive for Auburn on a 3rd down and 10. Nix thought about pumping but kept the football and got sacked. That's Hayden Henry from the Henry family dynasty in Fayetteville.
One of like 12 Henrys that are out there. They're actually different people. They don't change jerseys. Look at Hayden Henry coming in there, and you had to think, does Barry Odom heat him up?
By Felipe Franks. 2nd and 9, another inside handoff, and this surprises the Auburn defense. Traylon Smith, 1st down.
See if that sparks this Arkansas possession.
Again, it's Smith, and again, it's a big hole, and it's another 1st down. Pickup of 1. Franks looked confused there, and Smith bails him out again. What a drive by Traylon Smith.
The Razorback offense, only 2 of 8.
Smith makes it 3 of 9 inside the 20.
On the field with him, Amante Spivey had motion to an empty backfield.
Fake to Spivey this time, and it's again the big tight end. It's Blake Kern. 1st and goal, Arkansas.
And now Arkansas wants to rattle off a play.
Smith, touchdown.
The pass complete to number 22, Trenton Smith for the touchdown.
Rakeem Boyd did not make the trip from Fayetteville today, and this guy has stepped up.
They brought Owen Papo off the edge. McCrary, he's just got eyes on the quarterback for Auburn. They find themselves in the end zone 3 different times.
Franks, incomplete.
The pass is incomplete.
They give him an opportunity. Now it's been more beyond the line of scrimmage looks.
A 2nd and 6. That's Bigsby behind the line of scrimmage. And he'll get to the 26-yard line. Bo Nix has completed 13 passes today. 9 of them to Anthony Schwartz. And the Tigers have some breathing room on the Plains.
Patrolling the middle of the defense.
Franks on 2nd and 7 as a wide open receiver, and it's Blake Kern again into Auburn territory.
Well, they had Derek Hall follow Kern on the return motion when he went to the left of the formation and back, but then Hall blitzed. And Smoke Monday, Jamian Sherwood got beat deep.
Across the middle. Inside the 20 goes Mike Woods.
Smith had to bounce out wide, and as you mentioned, Frank's having to throw a block.
On 3rd and 8, a shuffle pass ahead, and it's going to be a 1st down inside the 5. What a play by Franks. This from 22 yards. Able to get this one down and up and through.
They're averaging around 65 yards on the ground.
And it's Tank again. Past the 20. Ball comes out. And it's Jalen Catalon on it.
Jalen Catalon.
Early on the field is a fumble recovered by the defense. 1st down.
That's not a good thing when another team's running the football on you. And I don't know. Look at that left elbow. Is the ball already coming out before Bigsby's left elbow would have established him down? 11 tackles, a pass broken up.
The fumble is under video review.
And potentially a fumble recovery for Jalen Catalon. The umpire's kind of blocking our view at that look. You can see Bigsby saying, I'm down, I'm down. Is this ball coming out before his left elbow touches the turf? That's really hard to tell if he's lost control of that football already. It almost looks like Alec Jackson, who's trying to push his teammate. See Alec Jackson's right elbow was what ultimately popped it clean loose. Was it already coming out? Remember, it was ruled a fumble on the field, and it needs to be indisputable that it was not, and that Bigsby was already down.
And to your point, I think the left elbow is the most important thing here. And Campbell does. He's just trying to fall on top of Bigsby, and he pushes this football out.
And it almost, it's hard to tell. It almost looked like the ball was coming out earlier. Right there, that's a whole lot of ball. I mean, you don't really see a glove or anything on it. Hard to tell that it wasn't coming out earlier.
Here's the ruling.
After video review, the ruling is the runner was down with the ball at the 21-yard line. It will be 2nd down and 3 from the 21. The game clock will start and ready for play.
Auburn 5 of 11 on 3rd down today. Here's a 3rd and 4. Williams, no chance.
And they have been far more deliberate in their pacing the entire half.
On 3rd and 7, Franks escapes for the 1st down.
And here comes
Newkirk is back on the field. Smith working hard, and he's down to the 46 of Auburn for another 1st down. Here's a 4th and 6.
I'd be shocked if Auburn doesn't play coverage right here, and it looks like they are. Alert the outlet pass to Traylon Smith.
And it's a 1st down, down to the 30-yard line to Woods.
5 catches tonight.
Franks to the end zone. Touchdown, Warren.
The Auburn defense is stunned. They're stunned. You're talking about a drive where they're just taking coverage sacks, getting after the quarterback. He gets a clean pocket. Davion Warren, they got the matchup they wanted with Christian Tutt in coverage. Kevin Steele can't believe it.
A.J. Reed gives Arkansas the lead. This guy is so synonymous with Florida football, given what Felipe Franks did in Gainesville. But now he's the quarterback of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Schenker going in motion, and it's Bigsby again. Moving laterally as that Arkansas defense does a good job of closing. Nix flushed out to the end zone, incomplete. Williams almost made that catch, and he was triple covered.
This game, he's about 6'3" or 4, but the catch radius, and really, that's a catch we've seen Seth Williams make. I couldn't tell if Clark got a hand on that ball, but Seth Williams almost tipped it to himself.
I think Fouché at the last second might have gotten a hand on it. Otherwise, Williams might have caught it on his back. Now Carlson for the lead. And he missed it. This might top that. He'll keep it himself on a 3rd and 12, and he'll be tackled shy of the 1st down. Standing inside his 10, Christian Tutt just past midfield. Another flag is down. Tutt fields it at his own 41 and already is past midfield. They only need 10 or 15 yards to get in Carlson's range, but he just missed a 34-yarder. Nick steps up, loads up, and what a deflection made there by Bumper Pool. 4-yarder to the right. And Nix will just clock it. Now, he dribbled the snap, picked it up, and then spiked it. It was a late whistle, but now a flag comes in.
He muffed the snap initially, and then he went to spike the football. Watch him. He's saying clock, clock, clock. Watch him up the snap. They're not under center much at Auburn. Nick Brahms got it up there to him cleanly, and you can see he's pleading with the white hat. Watch the ball come out of Nick's hand, and then he goes to clock it after he muffed the snap.
The ruling on the field is intentional grounding with offense number 10. The snap was fumbled, hit the ground, then the quarterback threw it in the ground, which is a loss of bounds at the spot of the foul. The previous play is under video review.
So, Stinch, the initial ruling here is because he did not execute the snap properly, it's then called intentional grounding, and clocking it isn't an option.
No, you have to field the snap cleanly if you want to clock it. That ball clearly is muffed. Look at this. Snap was up. Nix was trying to retreat too quickly, picks it up and spikes it. That's a grounding penalty. Well, you know, unless the review is to enforce the penalty, where exactly this ball should be spotted, because I think it's obvious what happened on that play. He never has that football.
And he
stands
he absolutely clocks it backwards too, which I wonder if is another thing they might be looking at here.
See Nix immediately pleading with the white hat. We're talking about an offense that's just looking to position this football. And frankly, they didn't even do that. They just want to clock it, run another play. Because if you're just positioning it, you move it, try to center it up. Instead, they're just trying to get the clock stopped, run another snap.
And as we just said, we wonder if these officials are looking to see if it in fact is a fumble instead of a clock, because the ball was bobbled with the snap and he clocked it backwards.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it almost, after he muffed that snap, was it a backwards pass? We said this earlier, and it was a little swing pass to Schwartz. But you could see it, because Nix didn't field it cleanly, he's kind of falling backwards. Watch the throw. Bad snap, or the good snap, muff snap, but watch him.
As you see Sam Pittman's mouth, that's a fumble, that's backwards.
I gotta tell you, it looks like like it was a fumble. He threw that ball backwards.
Stench, we watch more football than probably just about anybody watching. I don't think I have ever seen anything like this.
I mean, it would be like were he to be turning around for a toss. He just threw it overhand.
Jason Autry about to make an announcement as everyone waits with bated breath.
After video review, the ruling on the field stands. Loss of down for Auburn at the 22-yard line, 4th down.
Wow.
As the foul is for an intentional grounding, there's a 10-second runoff. Please reset the game clock to 18 seconds. The clock will start on the ready for play.
Okay, so regardless of what anyone thinks about the ruling here, keep in mind that the clock is going to start. So Anders Carlson is going to come onto the field to attempt this field goal.
I don't know how that's not a backward pass. Regardless, here comes the field goal attempt.
Carlson to give Auburn the lead. And this time, he barely sneaks it through. Carlson's given new life, and the Tigers are on top with 7 ticks remaining.
Redemption for Carlson. And frustration at best on the Arkansas sideline. He striped that one. It kind of leaked late like we saw in the previous attempt. And Auburn, late here in the second half, they reviewed it. They actually overturned what was ruled a fumble by Tank Bigsby on the field, overturned it, said they retained possession, and then on a interesting clock play that looked like a backwards pass after a muff snap, Auburn's able to retain possession again, and Carlson's able to make good on that field goal attempt. What an amazing sequence of events.
Rolling along to the Plains we go on Football Final. Dory, Chiswick, and Harper. Arkansas coming off the big win against Mississippi State, snapping a 20-game conference losing streak. Bo Nix explodes into the end zone. 17-zip Auburn. It looks like a route.
Yeah, it looked like a route, and it looked like a much improved offense running the football, getting the quarterback involved there, dominating the game throughout the first quarter and a half.
Felipe Franks. Davion Warren, 7 yards, touchdown. Arkansas goes for 2, don't get it to the Hogs. 17-12 game. Ensuing Auburn possession, Tank Bigsby. Look at Tank, just rumbling for 26.
This is a true freshman, guys, and I'll tell you what, this was his breakout game. Everybody expected this out of him when they recruited him. He's on his way to having a huge career at Auburn.
That was incredible. 146 yards rushing for him. Auburn up 8 at the half. Auburn up 6 now. Felipe Franks airs it out. He's got Davion Warren 30 yards.
Felipe throws a good ball, man.
He also did a great job of buying time, too, allowing guys to uncover in the secondary.
28-27 Razorback lead. Auburn gets the ball back, driving down the field. Less than 2 minutes to go. Bigsby, or rather Seth Williams, what a leaping effort to stay alive.
What an awful tackle attempt here.
That was a huge delivery, though, guys. The game's on the line, and you're driving the football down. Obviously, the ball goes to your best player.
Auburn trying a 34-yarder. Anders Carlson, no good, and the Razorbacks hang on to the lead. Could you imagine 2 straight conference wins after 20 straight conference losses? Auburn, though, got it back. Here we go. Closing minutes. Bigsby. There's the 8-yard gain I was looking for. They're in field goal range again. 3rd down, clock is running. Bo Nix can't handle the snap, then he spikes it. Call on the field was intentional grounding. However, it would be reviewed. Review keeps the possession with Arkansas, despite it was clearly a backwards spike. Here's Matt Austin.
He muffed the snap, which hit the ground, making the subsequent spike illegal. After recovering the ball, he turned towards his own goal line and grounded the ball backwards, creating a live ball. If all the players continue to go after the ball and there is a recovery during this action, instant replay can ignore the whistle and award the ball to the defense if they recover it. Several players did appear to stop during the action, thus ending the play. In this case, replay has nothing to do but let the play stand.
Auburn at the 22-yard line, 4th down.
We will get into this a bit later. I know Razorback fans are sick. But if Carlson would miss again, they would win anyway. Issue is from 39, Anders drills it. Auburn wins 30-28. They've won 5 in a row against the Hogs, but more than anything, just a very difficult ending for Arkansas, for head coach Sam Pittman. ESPN rules analyst Matt Austin explained it. I thought he explained it as well as he could have possibly explained it. I know this. The league office does not like that this happened. Is there a way we can simplify it any more than Matt did? I think Matt really kind of did. The bottom line is the whistle blew. Players kind of gave up on the play because of the whistle. If they had never given up on the play and a Razorback had recovered it immediately before any of that happened, or even after the whistle, if everybody still went for that football and nobody had let up, it could have been reviewed and given to Arkansas. It wasn't. It was unfortunately for Arkansas called an incomplete pass and not a backwards pass, and that's where we are. It's just a bad outcome.
Yeah, and you hate to say moral victories, right? I mean, Arkansas lost the football game, but I think there's a lot Sam Pittman can take from this game, regardless of how it ended, right? Nobody wants to see a game end on a potential official's call, but it did. But you know what? I saw a team today, and you don't know the personality of your team, until you get down 17-0, especially when you're a new coach.
Yeah.
I watched these guys battle back today. They battled back on offense. They battled back on defense. So regardless of what happened on this bobbled snap, regardless, it doesn't matter. Arkansas developed a personality today, and that is of grit and grind.
I'm with you there. I will say this, though. In the live, when we were watching it live, I don't think any of us realized it was a backward pass. It was only the benefit of replay and us discussing it and everybody. Like, the officials on the field, and we've done it before. You know, I've done the guest officiating. It's very difficult. I don't think anybody would have been able to see that at the moment. Literally, there was only one player for Auburn that reacted and one player for Arkansas that reacted.
Yeah, I mean, it's backwards. The league knows it. Everybody knows it now. The replay officials know it as well. Problem is, whistle blows, players give up on the play. It's over. There's nothing you can do at that point. You cannot change possession. Just a difficult situation.
Yeah. I'm not going to sit up here and try and explain something that I don't even understand. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, so I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah. All I can say is this. If I'm Sam Pittman, that referee needs to come talk to me. That's all I got to say. You need to come talk to me because we got some words to say.
Let's go back, though, to something that happened on Arkansas's first score. They missed the extra point. From that point on, they were chasing points, right? They went for two twice later on. If they get those 3 extra points, it's a different ballgame. So, you know, there's a lot that you could say about the officiating, and you hate that it turned out that way, but there's plays that could have been made within the course of the game that would have changed the outcome as well.
And let's not minimize how huge this win was for Auburn.
Yes.
Auburn played not well, and they heard it all week against Georgia last week. They needed this win. The offensive line played better. Bo Nix played better. They ran the ball better.
Bigsby's a monster as well.
And he's going to be a monster.
Good win for Auburn. Very difficult pill for Arkansas fans to swallow. We understand it. That's really it.
Saw Bo Nix looking to bounce back after that loss to Georgia. Fourth quarter is where we picked this one up under 6 minutes to play. Franks really drew the ball with his arm.
Florida transfer threw the ball beautifully in the rain, bad weather, 318 passing yards, 4 TDs.
Don't look now, but Arkansas had the lead there, and it was getting late. Nix gets the snap, rushes just a yard short of the field goal for the first down. Anders Carlson warming up to kick. Would we see him? Nix attempting to spike the ball, but something crazy happened here.
Pay attention to this because when I first saw it, I thought he spiked it backwards. So the ball definitely goes backwards after he picks it up off the ground. So it's muffed. He picks it up, throws it backwards. So now I have to go back and take a look at this. And I know Arkansas is arguing that is a backwards pass and we recovered it. Why is it not a fumble? After a long review, the officials decided it is just grounded. And so they retain the football, and all of a sudden they still have a chance to win this football game.
Arkansas fans are devastated. Sam Pittman devastated, but here's what you see there. Carlson hitting the 39-yard field goal. That was redemption for him. Auburn wins at 30-28 and escape. Our rules expert, Bill Lamagnier, with an explanation on that call at the end.
It's an interesting play because you're allowed to spike a ball if you take and get the snap cleanly. But if you muff the snap, it hits the ground, then you pick it up, and now you spike the ball, that's a foul. Now, the question here, though, and the debate is this a forward pass or a backward pass? His intent, and we always try and go with philosophy to give the quarterback the benefit of the doubt for the forward pass. This one here, looking at it, to me, this is a backward pass.
Thanks for the explanation there, Bill.